Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse in yet another breakdown. Today we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on the third episode of the Ahsoka series. A bit of a shorter episode this week, but it was very action-packed and had a lot of George Lucas feels to it. This episode being titled Time to Fly. And the episode starts off as Ahsoka's T6 Jedi shuttle is blasting through hyperspace. And inside we see Huyang and Sabine training in lightsaber combat. Huyang uses 4 arms to assist Sabine, just like how General Grievous used 4 arms in actual combat. Now this is something that Huyang has done for hundreds of years, assisting and training the Jedi even before Yoda's time, as he has been a part of the Order for a countless amount of time himself. He makes sure that Sabine's lightsaber strikes are on time and are accurate with their target, which it seems that she is somewhat getting a hang of it, slowly but surely. Ahsoka says that this isn't enough to defeat their enemies and she must train with her mind as well as her body, to keep an open mind and how the power of the Force and wielding it takes a huge commitment. And if you're confused about why Sabine is even being mentioned with the Force, or you are in fact upset and annoyed by it, well, allow me to give you an idea of what is going on here. As even Ahsoka says later on in this episode, the Force lives within all of us. The Force is a part of every single living being in the galaxy. This was an idea originally stated by George Lucas himself, the literal creator of Star Wars. So everyone in the galaxy has access to the Force, but of course, not everyone can wield it as others can, and we can see that Sabine is incapable of doing so, at least for now. So obviously, she is not as gifted as others with the will and the power, such as Ahsoka. However, she is trying to get there with the Force that again lives within everybody. Even the likes of Watto or Jar Jar Binks are Force-sensitive beings. It all just relies on the commitment and the manifestation that you have within yourself to continue going on with it. Ahsoka has Sabine put on a helmet with a visor blocking her vision to train. Now, not only is this a little callback to when Luke was trained by Kenobi with a similar blinding visor against the Jedi training droids, which we can also see in the background here, but this also is a callback to how Kanan Jarrus was a blind Jedi himself. Kanan even trained with Sabine and taught her how to wield the Darksaber. This type of training helps a Jedi or Force user feel the Force and see without their own eyes. A way to predict and know what is to come by feeling and connecting with the power of the Force. Sabine takes a while to be able to even react to Ahsoka's movements, and it doesn't really go anywhere, but she is trying nonetheless. After making Sabine fall, Ahsoka tells her that anger and frustration are quick to give power, but they also unbalance you. The perfect analysis of what the Sith are all about. They strive in power with their negative emotions, but it is often their own downfall. We then cut to A-Wings flying into a New Republic fleet that looks to be orbiting around Coruscant. Hera is here to meet with some New Republic senators as she walks in with a Mon Calamari pilot, the same species as Admiral Akbar, of course. Now, one of the senators is Mon Mothma, a prominent character in the prequels and especially the originals. A character that stood against the Empire as soon as it rose to power. And another one of these senators here is Hamato Ziono, the father of Kazuda Ziono, one of the main characters in the Resistance series, which I personally haven't watched, so apologies if I mispronounce that, but a cool Easter egg either way. As well as 3 other unnamed senators, at least to my knowledge, and one of them is a part of the Grand Species. Hera explains to these politicians the entire Thrawn situation, asking for resources and assistance with preventing yet another war. But of course, they don't believe her and ultimately just deny her any resources or help, and Ziono takes digs at Hera and tries to say that she is only doing this to find her dead friend, Ezra Bridger. But obviously, if she's looking for Ezra, either way, that also involves Thrawn himself, as they disappeared together. But as soon as Hera even utters Thrawn's name, you can definitely feel a bit of horror or fear in the room, especially with Mon Mothma's reaction. This is granted, of course, as Thrawn was by far one of, if not, the most intelligent admiral in the entire Empire, as well as the most dangerous dangerous in battle. After the failed meeting, Hera is approached by Jacen Syndulla and Chopper. Of course, Jacen is the son of Hera and Kanan Jarrus. Jacen ends up talking about how Sabine is becoming a Jedi and then mentions how he wants to be one as well. Now, Jacen Syndulla is actually much more plausible and will likely be much more keen and powerful in the Force than Sabine, as his father Kanan Jarrus was a great teacher and a powerful Jedi, a part of a powerful lineage as well, as Kanan was the Padawan to Depa Billaba, and Depa Billaba was Mace Windu's own apprentice. Cutting back to Ahsoka and Sabine as they sit down and have something to drink after their training sessions. This is where Ahsoka mentions the fact that the Force does live within everybody, and how everyone can actually use it, but of course Sabine is doubtful as she says she can't even feel the Force. Asking why everyone does not just use a Force if it's actually within everybody, but that is of course because of talent and focus, and how much of a factor they really play, as Ahsoka says herself. Ahsoka leaves Sabine in the room by herself as she goes to speak with Huyang about Sabine's progress, where Huyang says that Sabine would have never been chosen to become a Jedi, as she lacks the talent, the midichlorian count, and at the moment, even the will and the commitment. Huyang then says that it is very rare for a Mandalorian to become a Jedi, and there have only ever been a few to do so in history. Here he is referencing Tar Vizsla, an ancestor to Pre Vizsla and Paz Vizsla, as well as the creator of the Darksaber and the first ever Mandalorian Jedi. Ahsoka continues on and clearly is struggling with the entire situation with training Sabine to become a Jedi, and she says that she doesn't even really want Sabine to become a Jedi, as the Jedi failed. This is in reference to how they failed her during the Barriss Offee framing, but they also evidently failed Anakin as well. She then says that Sabine should just be herself and not just a Jedi. Now mind you, this is a very Ahsoka sort of thing to say, and this was a big belief of hers as well as Anakin's in some sense. Huyang then makes a remark that Ahsoka comes from a long line of non-traditional Jedi, as she looks out and thinks. Clearly thinking of Anakin, as he was a very non-traditional Jedi, at least to the Order standards, during his time. As Sabine sits in the room by herself, she tries to use the Force to grab the cup across the table, something I'm sure we all used to do during our childhoods. As she says to herself, the Force is in all of us, a very Chewit Imwe thing to say. But of course, as it is in real life, it is to no avail and it does not work. As Ahsoka calls Sabine to the front of the ship as they have been contacted by Hera, where she informs them that the New Republic will not be providing any help this time, as their ship jumps out of hyperspace and into the Dinab system. And as they enter the system, their communications are blocked off, as Sabine wonders why they dropped out of hyperspace so far from their destination. Where of course, Huyang says that this is a standard Jedi protocol, which I mean it is, but you can tell that this just annoys Sabine, as he does constantly make jokes and remarks about Jedi standards in front of her, as he does not believe her to be capable of becoming one herself. They then pick up the giant hyperspace docking ring on their beacon as 6 starfighters approach and begin firing on the T6 Jedi shuttle. Shin Hati and Marrok are in the starfighters. Now if you look at Shin Hati, the headset that she is wearing while flying her ship is the same type that Anakin and Obi-Wan wore whenever they flew in their ships during the prequels. Sabine rushes to the tailgun of the ship and fires back at the starfighters, and whenever she gets a hit on one of them, we get the same sort of feeling as to when Luke Skywalker used the guns on the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope. We're just missing Ahsoka telling her to not be cocky. Finally, working together, Ahsoka and Sabine blast a few of the ships out of the sky, and they begin getting closer and closer to the hyperspace ring, so that Huyang can begin a scan. But as they approach the ring, Morgan Elsbeth has the shuttle shot down as they begin to float in space, stranded, as the shuttle is out of power and the starfighters are approaching to finish them off. As Shin Hati orders Marrok to form up on her position, where we finally hear his voice in a very distorted manner. He responds and says, "As you wish," a very Vader-esque or Lord Starkiller voice. Ahsoka makes a last-minute call to save the ship as she puts on a spacesuit and heads outside of the ship to defend them. A big callback to when Plo Koon did this himself, as well as when Ahsoka and Anakin did so together during the Clone Wars. Ahsoka uses the gravity in space to jump around the ships and then slice them with her sabers as Sabine fixes their ship up and powers it back on. This was a super awesome scene, by the way. Getting back in the ship as they blast off towards the planet of Cetos as Marrok and Shin Hati tail right behind them. And as they get closer to the planet, their radar starts picking up more stuff, as Purrgil begin emerging from the clouds and flying around their ships. The Purrgil being the space whales that have the ability to travel through hyperspace, just like any actual ship. And they are the creatures that are responsible for sending Thrawn and Ezra into exile in another galaxy essentially. Finally getting past the Purrgil and escaping Marrok and Shin Hati's sight, where they land in the middle of the forest on the planet of Cetos. As Huyang wakes back up very briefly before they shut him and the ship's power down to avoid any detection. Once the coast is clear and Shin and Marrok fly overhead without spotting them, they turn the power back on and Huyang's scan was a success, where they learn that the hyperspace ring is still under construction and how the power of the ring is immense. We then see Baylan as he stands at the relic site and orders his men to go and hunt down the Jedi that are hiding out in the forest, as he looks off into the distance and takes a deep breath. To me, this is a pretty big hint that he is likely conflicted by this and does not want to have to kill another former Jedi. As we do know, Baylan was a survivor of Order 66 and was a Jedi himself before all of this. I just wonder who his master was. Maybe we will end up finding out very soon. Anyways though, as he looks out into the distance, this is where the third episode ends off. And overall, I thought this was a very fun episode. Although it was very short, you can definitely tell that it was meant to lead up to some big things and presumably battles in the next episode. There were lots of fun callbacks in this one, and I felt as if it had a big samurai feel to it, and I loved that as well. And I think this episode, at least for me personally, was an easy 8 out of 10. And I can't wait to see what happens in next week's episode. But of course, I would like to hear about your thoughts on this episode as well, so make sure to leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, don't forget to give it a like, and with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.